I'm Dave Catlin, and I'm presenting this paper on the EduRobot Taxonomy at the Robots in Education Conference held in Qwara, Malta on the 18th of April 2018. I wrote the paper with my colleagues Dr. Martin Candelova and Dr. Stephanie Holmquist. This is the world's first educational robot. Turtle, designed by Seymour Papert and built in January 1970. I designed my first robot, the Valiant Turtle, in 1983, the Roma in 1989 and the latest Roma in 2010. Pre-2010, there were relatively few robots in the educational space. After 2010, new educational robots kept showing up. For example, at least 10 new robots appeared at last January's BET show in London. To help us understand these robots, we need to organise them into similar groups. That is, we need to create an educational robot taxonomy, which we will call EduRobot. This will mean when researchers report their findings, it will not just apply to the robots they used in their research, but all the robots in a particular class. It will also help teachers understand what's available. Let's look at the history of taxonomy. What you'll notice about these key players is that they're all concerned with the life sciences. This definition reflects that, the science of the classification of living things and extinct organisms. A modern definition is more universal, the study of the general principles of scientific classification. Of course, the Internet has driven this change. Taxonomies help the Internet organise, find and understand information. This is another reason for EduRobot. With the proliferation of taxonomies comes a radical increase in approaches. Within reason, we can adopt whatever method we think suits the problem. An excellent paper by Van Ries explores various definitions, and we have adapted these from his work. Taxonomy refers to the structure, classification, the names of each node in the structure, and the ontology is a definition of those classifications. Before we define an educational robot, we need to start by defining a robot. This has proven especially difficult. The term came from Carol Karpek's play Rossum's Universal Robots, or RUR, so it belongs to the arts as much as the sciences. In the paper we review opinions of a few roboticists. In his book on personal robotics, Richard Rauchi states that robots must have sensors. I want to challenge that. If you look at robots from a broad perspective, you'll find it's a subset of control engineering, which is itself a subset of cybernetics. The system boundaries is a key idea in control. If you put the boundaries around the robot, then Rauchi might have a case. But if you draw the boundary around the robot and the child, the situation changes. The children provide the senses. While children play turtle, this is the situation, and it provides some rich educational environments. However, we do need to have an overarching definition for an educational robot, and for that we look to the 10 educational robotic application, the ERA principles. I wrote these with Mike Blamires in 2010, and they provide a framework to help us understand educational robots. 3 of these principles combine to give us a definition. The first of these is the interaction principle. This states students are active learners whose multimodal interactions with educational robots take place via a variety of appropriate semiotic systems. Programming is a semiotic system, and so is language or colour. For example, red in the West means danger, yet in China it means good fortune. semiotic systems are culturally embedded. You'll notice a simple axiomatic style about the principles. The intelligence principle states educational robots can have a range of intelligent behaviours that enable them to effectively participate in educational activities. It can have a rudimentary intelligence for one activity and a complex intelligence for another. The embodiment principle states students learn by intentional and meaningful interactions with educational robots situated in the same space and time. This means we're talking about physical and not virtual robots. Now, I'm sure many of you disagree with this statement, so let's look at it in a bit more detail. There's a long history to the idea of physical embodiment. It starts with Immanuel Kant's idea that how we understand the world depends upon our equipment, that is, our body, senses and mind. He claimed that we see the world in terms of time, space and mathematical patterns. Now, Jakob von Uskal formulated this into a practical biological theory introducing the Umwelt. Every creature perceives the world according to their nature and their needs. This inspired Norbert Wiener's cybernetics and the latest work of Rodney Brooks. This is about our experiencing the world in the same way the robot will. Once again, playing turtle. Sylvia Ware was part of Papa's development team. She made this statement. The inventors of Logo treated the physical turtle much the same as the screen turtle, but children do not. This is what David Miller talked about this morning. He recalled how the students in the bot-ball competition preferred the physical over the virtual robots. Sylvia Ware also reports how children got significantly better results using the physical compared with the virtual robot. Just to be clear, we're not saying there's no value in virtual educational robots. We're saying it's not the same as the physical robot. Now, EduRobot is a taxonomy for embodied, that is, physical educational robots. There's nothing stopping someone creating a virtual robot taxonomy, but it wouldn't be a class or type of EduRobot. It would be something else. The taxonomy of the life science is complicated. We want EduRobot to be much simpler. This is our starting suggestion. Type, class, an option for subclass, brand, that is the name of the product, and then the characteristics of that product. What is a type? We take our inspiration from the TRTWR conferences, that is teaching robotics and teaching with robotics. For teaching robotics, students build the robots. We'll call those buildbots. Teaching with robotics, students use the robots. That is, you can take them out of the box and use them as an educational activity immediately. You might need to put batteries in, or you might even need to configure them in some way, but you don't build them. We've identified 3 BuildBot classes. Build Systems is a kit of parts that you can put together in different ways to make different robots. Robot Kits, a more closed system. You assemble a specific robot from a set of parts. In some cases, you can build more than one robot, but you still build specific robots. In the MakerBot class, you make or scavenge the parts to build the robot. We've identified a number of subclasses, and I will briefly explain these with examples. BuildBot, Build Systems, and subclass component parts. Students build these robots from well-engineered components. The system provides everything you need to build countless different robots. Example, Lego Mindstorms. BuildBot, Build Systems, and subclass modular parts. Robots built from different modules, each serving a different purpose. Example, Qwara. BuildBot, robot kits and subclass toy kits. Our 14-in-1 solar robot is a toy kit children can assemble in 14 different ways to get 14 different robots. BuildBot, robot kits and subclass hobby kits. These kits tend to require engineering skills to construct. Polu's 3PI is such a kit that comes with its own controller. Students program the firmware into processors using professional tools. BuildBot, maker robots and subclass computer boards. This refers to a range of kits made to work with boards like Arduino and Raspberry Pi. It supports engineering level projects for hobbyists, high school and college students. BuildBot, maker robots and subclass junk parts. NanoRobot is a suite of open source ROS, that is Robot Operating System, compatible robots. Students use engineering skills to build robots from the ground up using found materials and accessible hardware. BuildBot, maker robots and subclass printed parts. Students make the mini Skybot mobile robot from 3D printed parts. It uses open source mechanics and electronic parts which students can modify or replace with their own designs. We've identified 8 different classes of user bots, which I'll explain with examples. UseBot, Turtle, a basic mobile platform, originally programmed using a subset of logo called Turtle Graphics. Newer robots still use a variation of this type of program. Example, Scribbler. UseBots, walking robots. There are 2 subclasses, humanoid like Nao and animal like Aibo. UseBot, robot arms. Educational versions of industrial arms. Example, Scorebot. UseBot, drones, flying robots. Example, Parrot Mambo. UseBot, telepresence. The robot operator gets a sense of being at the robot's physical location even when they're not. Hospitalized children use them to attend school. Example, Beam Pro. UseBot, robot tutors. Robots that act as teachers or teaching assistants. They ask questions and tell stories. Example, Tiger. UseBot, toy robots. Simple smart toys children can interact with. Example, Pokebot. UseBot, social robots. Socially assisted robots that help children develop social skills. Example, Casper. This is the classification covering elephants. They use DNA and genetics to classify animals now. Before, they used characteristics like size of ears, colour, tusk, and so on. We've identified these characteristics for robots. As an example, let's look at locomotion in detail. This list represents the different ways robots move or not move. You'll notice we've limited the detail. For example, we don't say subcategories for wheels like Ackerman steering or differential drive. We can think of these as tags, and if we analyse, for example, Lego Mindstorms, you'll find that you can tag all of these locomotion characteristics, so you're not restricted to one single characteristic. We include a maximum of 30-word description in the classification. This is an example taken from YouTube for a recently launched robot. Meet Fable, the world's first educational robot enabling you to solve real-world challenges while being fun and easy to use. I mean, these guys have got to be kidding. They cannot claim to be the first in any of those things. This is marketing nonsense, and it's a pity because it looks a good robot. This is the sort of thing we're looking for, a straightforward description of the robot. And this is the place to mention, if it's particularly important, details like Ackerman drives. This is an example of a classification: a basic picture, type, class and if necessary subclass of the robot, the product brand name, a short description and a list of characteristics. Let's look at the classification process using an example from the animal world. Mammals and reptiles both share the same rank of class in the animal taxonomy. Their characteristics are clearly different. Then in the 1790s, they found this fella. When news about it arrived in Europe, nobody believed it. They all thought it a fraud. A mammal that laid eggs? Really? It took 85 years to agree its classification. Roma is a turtle robot, straight out of the box ready for use. Yet you can use it as a platform onto which you can build different robots. This is not restricted to arts and crafts. Here we see an example of a 3D printed design built onto Roma which is operated by gesture control. However, this does not change the fundamental userbot nature of the Roma, just as laying eggs does not change the more fundamental mammalian nature of the platypus. This is to do with taxonomic rank. The rule is higher ranks prevail, and it's this rule that prevents a robot being given two classifications. So you can make a turtle robot from Lego Mindstorms, but this does not make Lego a userbot. It's still a buildbot. What's not in the taxonomy and why? First, there is nothing about pedagogy or what you would use the robot for. EduRobot is about the construction of the robot. There's also nothing about the cost, because the cost varies from time to time, and what is more important is cost benefit. People can soon find out the cost of a robot if they're interested in buying it. We've not included the age of the student. That's included in some cases in the description, but in general, children can always surprise us. This paper is a starting point. We're already planning changes and improvements to the ontologies and possibly promoting social robots to a type status. We've provided delegates with a questionnaire, and if you get time, please complete them and hand them in to me. Thank you for your time.